Here we go. Well, Greg, welcome back.
Hey, good to be here, Keith.
So I didn't want to start with negative stuff, but we canceled Tuesday's
Right,
podcast because
right,
you happen to have been going to a game.
yeah,
You being in Minnesota, myself in
right.
New York, and the Yankees were playing the Twins. And I'm sorry to say that it didn't go well for you and your
It
team.
did not go well. We got off to a good start. First hitter of the game hits a home run for the Twins, and then they took the rest of the night off.
They took the
So,
series off, to tell you the truth.
was that?
I think they took the whole series off.
I'm afraid so. Yeah, yeah. It went from bad to worse.
I think that reminded me of
Who
my
knew the
Met.
highlight of the whole series would be the bottom of the first inning of the first
No,
game?
you're in trouble when you just play 27 innings and the last time you scored was the first inning of the first game. It's like, uh,
But it was a beautiful night. We had a great time, and it is fun to watch the Yankees play. I mean, I'm not a Yankees fan, but I respect them for the talent they put on the field, and they play the game the right way.
yeah,
So
they're a great organization, and it's funny when you were talking sports because we both love sports, but sports is a business.
yeah, it
You know,
certainly is.
it's a big business.
Big business. Yeah.
The same principles of running, our consulting businesses is no different than running, well, it's different in certain ways because the risk reward ratio is so much greater. But the fact remains, they have to bring fans, put them in the seats. They have to market the
Yeah.
product,
Yes.
and they have to constantly be looking to improve, which is really what every business needs to do.
And they have to have a feeder program because
Yep.
they've got minor league
Yep.
teams. They've got to keep their finances in order because they have free agent issues and when they have a big star that they need to sign, they
Yeah,
need they need to make
and then
sure
you
they
have
have that set aside.
yeah, and then you have the big markets and the small markets. Money wise,
Yeah.
makes a very big
Yeah.
difference.
Yes. Yeah.
Obviously, when you're in a small market, you can't compete for guys like Juan Soto and the big guys. But Minnesota's
But
done
but
quite
I
well.
think that
Yeah,
brings up an interesting point, Keith, just about business in general is there's certain things we just can't control.
right.
And the Minnesota Twins are not going to be in the largest market tomorrow. They're always going to be a considered a small market team, but they just have to figure out how to compete with the large market teams. And you can't use it as an excuse and settle and say, well, it's okay if we finish second every year in our division. It's like, no, you have to figure out how to play the game differently, how to compete differently. Right? And it's just
Yeah,
like in business, right? We don't get to control the environment we're in.
no,
We don't get to control what others in our business are doing, but we do get to control how we react to those things and how we set ourselves up in the marketplace to look differently from somebody else.
yeah. It's so true, and it's so interesting because if you look in the last 30 years, I believe the Twins have won as many, if not more, championships than every major market team. So they had to do it somehow, and they certainly couldn't compete on the big free agents, but they said, you know what, we got to build our farm system. And they
Right,
did.
right.
They did.
Yeah.
So, which is a good lesson for business owners
It,
in general.
they built their farm system and they've timed their free agents
Yes.
right. They haven't they've signed guys to big contracts who were maybe a little bit younger, but they haven't gone out and pursued kind of the older free agents unless they could get them at a bargain.
Yeah, which is usually if you get them at a bargain, they're on the way down anyway. So, I could remember, and every time I talk about things from 30, 40 years ago, it reminds me and our audience how old I am. But I remember the Mets in 1982 signed George Forster. Now, George Forster was a Cincinnati Red. He had 52
Yeah,
years in the late 70s or mid 70s.
Yeah,
And it's like you knew you weren't getting that George Foster. And sure
right.
enough, they didn't. And it was a bust. A bust. You don't want to take on big contracts when when the product is diminished.
Right.
It's
Right.
like buying closeouts, it's no longer got all the features and the functions, and and it doesn't compete the same way, but I guess it serves a purpose.
Well, we go back to our sports analogy to business that sometimes you have to take a chance, right?
Yeah.
You don't know how those things are going to turn out. So sometimes you have to take risks. And you obviously want to mitigate your risks, but you do have to, the future is not set in stone and it's not always 100% predictable or even 5% predictable.
Yes, we know that. So yeah, it's interesting because how do you survive in business when you're missing some key ingredients? The key ingredients is you can have a beautiful car, but if you can't afford the gas,
Right.
cars, you can't go too far. So how do you build your business methodically, knowing that you don't have what your competitors have? So
Sure. And especially when you're new, right? You're
yep,
you're basically an unknown quantity. Um, yeah, and again, that's where you can't make excuses. You just got to figure it out because if you're the new kid on the block, there's others who are more established, who have, deeper roots, who have probably more credibility just because they've been around longer in whatever it is they're doing. But you just have to figure out a way. You have to do some analysis and figure out where their weakness is, and can you exploit that?
yeah, and there's always something that you can exploit, and that you've been through my sales coaching classes, so you know what I focus on, which is knowing your competitors. First,
Right,
know what your business is, but knowing your competitors, what they do, what are their weaknesses? Because every business, no matter what their size, has their strengths, their weaknesses, that can be exploited. Uh, you know, they're not as nimble as you as a small business, so you can make moves, in a moment's notice, where
right.
they may have to spend 90 days analyzing it and going through it and getting approvals. So there are things you can do to compete. Um, I'm not a fan of competing on price, although that seems to be quite common. Someone thinks that, well, I'm going to get into this market, I'm going to lower my prices, I'm going to beat the competition. But I don't believe the time to do that is in the beginning, because you're forgetting that you have to build a reputation first. If the first thing is about price, you know, maybe someone will try you because, oh yeah, they're having a great deal, but at the end of the day, you haven't established a brand, you haven't established, anything, and you want to build that first. I think it's really important.
I agree. I agree. I think if your if your entry into the market is that you're going to be the low cost supplier of whatever it is, product or service you're providing, there is a place for that. But I think the problem with competing on price is somebody can always beat you. Right? Somebody can always
Yeah.
beat you on price. And the risk you run is you start really going down a rabbit hole where how much price cutting is too much. And it seems like nobody wins
No, nobody wins,
that
because what
race.
happens if you cut your price that much, something else is going to suffer.
Right,
You
right.
know,
You're much better off identifying that niche in the marketplace that you can serve,
right.
finding those ideal clients that you really align well with from a value standpoint, from a connection standpoint, and then providing the value for what it is your price that you are charging.
Yeah, and this comes down to one of my other pillars, which is selling yourself. It's like when people like you, they'll do business with you. They'll keep coming back to you. They'll refer people to you. If you don't sell yourself, then you don't build a brand. Because initially, when you open a store and it's, John's bargain store, nobody knows John. Maybe you're not even John. Maybe you just, you called, maybe it was your grandfather or something, but nobody knows you. Okay. And the only way they're going to get to know you is when they do business with you. So if you establish you as the brand, okay, people will buy that because, and it's as simple as the greetings that you give somebody when you do business with them, how you respond, how you thank them, how the product you're delivering, whatever that product might be.
Right,
Certain products, in a restaurant, it's your food, it's how it's your menu. Where in other, businesses, you're selling something that's a commodity that, everybody in that same line could sell that same product. The only difference is going to be, well, maybe one place charges a little more, a little less.
right, right.
Separate yourself from who you are, I think is key.
Yeah, I think as business owners, taking a really good look at yourself, your product, your service, and really understanding what's different about what differentiates you and your product from the others, and then really trying to exploit that with potential clients. And I don't mean exploit in a bad way. I mean really play that up, right? Here's why I'm different. Here's why, me as a business coach, because of my background, because of the way I work with people, because of the way I follow up, all of those things, to me is why somebody would want to do business with me.
Absolutely, no question. Again, I'm going back, 35, 40 years ago, but pre-internet, when I opened up my business, I was an optician, eyeglass store. I went and introduced myself to doctors in the neighborhood. You give out your business card, I mean, you're looking really for referrals and people, to get someone to refer to you, there's that initial connection. What do you do? What's different about your business? Right now I refer to, the guy down the block, and it's like, why should I refer to you?
Right.
My answer to that would be, you don't have to refer to one person. I'm not asking to monopolize all your referrals, but just like I'm going to refer to doctors, other ophthalmologists, I'd like to have you as one of the people that I refer to. And that usually opened the door. Yeah, you're right. It's like, because people get comfortable with, oh yeah, let me just send it here, that kind of stuff. But
Right.
a referral's a very personal thing.
Yes.
You're basically saying, okay, you're giving your blessing to the person or business that you're referring. If you
Absolutely. Yeah. People do not give out referrals willy-nilly.
no, and
Right.
they shouldn't. I mean, referrals should be earned.
Right.
They shouldn't
Right.
be something like, oh yeah, I went there, had a great meal. But you know something? The next time you meal might have been terrible. The service might have been terrible. So referrals come from consistency in how you do business.
Yeah.
Food's always good. The service is always good. The people that run the place is great. They make a great drink. My
Yeah.
favorite drink is that they know how to make it perfect. It's like,
It's interesting when you talk about restaurants, because sometimes and referrals as it comes to restaurants is I'm not always looking for the same kind of restaurant.
no,
Sometimes I'm looking for a restaurant that's maybe more intimate, right? Because I'm with a small group. Sometimes I might want a restaurant because of the environment, right? They may not have the best food, but they've got this great room that we can use and be together in, and we can hear each other talk, and
right.
it's private. So there's always a different reason why you might be looking for a particular restaurant. There might be a reason why you're looking for a
Yeah,
particular product, right?
yeah,
And
absolutely.
again, that goes back to that, finding that niche and really playing up that niche and making yourself, don't try to be, don't try to be all restaurants to everybody, but really have your particular niche. And that's how you'll be successful.
Yeah, I mean, again, we could talk about this same strategy with any type of business, not just food,
Absolutely.
but
Yeah.
you know, because food is something that we do regularly and eating out or ordering in or there's always you're looking for something. I'm either in a mood for a certain type of food or if I'm going out, like you just said, a type of environment, do I want to be in a place that has, the parents there with young kids and it's loud and it's
Right.
noisy, and
Right.
I'm just that's not what I want because I'm going out with some friends. We want some quiet, you know. And then there's, okay, they specialize, you can go to an Italian restaurant, but they really specialize in their selection of pasta. Okay. I mean,
Mhm.
that's their, yes, you can get pizza, you can get a hero, but their pasta, they got so many different things you've never heard of or never tasted. I mean, I'm just, of course, I'm not in the restaurant business, but
Right.
I'm just saying that that would be a differentiator because that's how people will remember. And how did they get to be that specialty? They ran Pasta Tuesdays, okay,
Right.
at like very inexpensive. So a lot of people would go and get the pasta on Tuesday. By the way, it's a true story. This is a
Mhm.
restaurant in Long Island that I've gone to with my family. And it's mostly, a pizza place, but they have a restaurant, and because there was always these specials, you go more often and you try a lot of things. So what happens, the word gets out that the pasta's great there.
Right.
Now, they didn't just do that by accident. They knew that this is something that they're very good at, and they wanted to have, again, using the word exploit, they wanted to exploit uh, that, not the benefit, but I guess the quality of their pastas and a lot of different selections, Sometimes you go to a pasta place, it's three different types. You can get penne, you can get ziti, and you can get
Mhm.
spaghetti. That's it. But then there are places that they have, if it's fresh pasta. It's not just
Yeah.
pasta, fresh pasta.
Right.
There's a lot of different things. The business that I was in, the eyeglass business, you know, we were known for a great selection. Okay. Not that, you know, we had, one eyeglass designer frame was better than the same one in another store, but we had a great selection. And that's something that when people go shopping, whether it's eyeglasses, clothing, shoes, you don't want to go into a place and it's like the selection is poor. They rarely have your size, it's like, and
Right.
you're like frustrated. So
Yeah.
I was the buyer in the business. So I'd get excited when the vendors would come in with the different designers and different styles. So we're always upgrading and adding. So that was one of the differentiators. And then of course there was myself who, I was,
A service. Yeah.
yeah, it's the way I serviced, the way I spoke to people. I made people feel like they were my family.
Mhm.
I remembered them. If something was going on the last time I saw them, mom was in the hospital or my kid was graduating, you know, I remember those things. I make a point of saying, hey, how's your mom doing? Or, how was the graduation? There was a party. You must have had a great time. Yeah, it was great. It was people appreciate your attention to those kind of details.
Sure. Sure. You're bringing up an interesting point, Keith, from the standpoint that in the business you were in, eyeglasses. Number one is I think it's something people they value, so they may not buy on price alone. In fact, I would say
Correct.
they
Correct.
they don't buy on price. They're because it's something very personal to them. But also the service that they receive uh, is really important to them as well because it is such a personal item. And I think it's, clothing, I think can be like that. There's certainly some clothing that's relatively generic, like
Yeah. Like a
it's
pair of
hard to get
jeans
excited.
or
It's hard to get excited about socks, although there are companies who have, like
yes,
Bombas has
they've killed it.
differentiated
Socks.
themselves
Yeah.
in a very commoditized world
Yeah.
business. Um, but going back to your business, I think the fact that one, you had a product that people looked at and said, hey, I really want to make sure I'm getting quality product here. I'm not just going to buy the lowest cost that's out there. And two is, they want a high level of service.
Right.
and
right.
they're willing to pay a little extra for that.
Yeah, and the other thing, we were filling prescriptions. So basically, it doesn't matter how good the frame looks. If you don't fill the prescription properly and the person's getting headaches and they're not seeing, so those kind of details are important.
That's pretty important.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So, and you can't lose sight of that. So, it's, I guess that's why I love business so much, because there's always a challenge.
Mhm.
It's never the same, Yeah, there's a lot of things that are the same, but every person that you do business with, they might have different problems that you have to solve, different issues. I believe the first time somebody comes to a place that I would say price is important to them, but it also depends upon the product. I think, and as you just said, I think with eye care and eyewear, I think it's, yeah, I don't have to buy a $300 frame, but I do need to make sure the kind of lenses I'm getting will solve my vision problem.
Right.
So there's, pluses and minuses to that. And people, have to live on a budget. Uh, but the one thing I know from history, and it's been a long time since I've been in that business, but people don't get glasses that often. It's on average 2 to 3 years between,
Right.
getting a new pair of glasses, unless they're having some vision problem that just comes up and they have no choice. So because of that, the cost is not, even though it could be very high, if you think about it, well, I don't do it that often. It's like going to a very expensive restaurant.
Right.
It's expensive, but it's a special occasion. It's like
Yeah.
it's my daughter's birthday, my kids, my grandson's this, but so those are I mean, there's so many things that you can do to differentiate yourself, but you got to be creative in your own mind.
And again, going back to really understanding your product and your customers, right? You brought up a really good point there, that this is not a purchase that they're going to make every month or even every year. They may only make this purchase every couple of years.
Right.
People look at those kind of purchases differently than more recurring type purchases, right? Um, if it's something because it's got a longer life, they want quality, they want durability, they want it's got to last 2 years. If they're not going to buy for every couple of years, then those glasses have to last.
Right. And listen,
And there's nothing more frustrating than a broken pair of glasses.
no, so my stores were one of the first stores to do the buy one, get one free,
Mm-hmm.
because I think my slogan back then is get a spare pair free guaranteed. You know? So I was always a marketer, and but it the spare pair wasn't exactly the same as their first pair, but my position was you can't not have a spare pair of glasses if you're so dependent on them to see.
Right.
You have to do that.
Yep.
So it still comes down to what I say all the time is know your product, know your industry, know your competitors.
Right. Right. And
Oh,
I think something else you said, just touch on is, you said how there's always a challenge in business, regardless of what business we're in. And I think the challenge gets to be, one of the challenges gets to be, is how quickly things change in our environment. So
mhm.
you talked about, a spare pair of glasses, right? Because it used to take so long to get glasses that you absolutely had to have that second pair. Then what changed? There were companies out there who started to turn glasses around in 24 or 48 hours, right?
It
So
got
now all
even
of a sudden,
better than that. They would do it the same day.
so now all of a sudden you're saying, okay, do I need a spare pair of glasses or not? And there again, from your standpoint, owning your business, if you'd had that business at the time that was happening, you would have had to react to that somehow. You would have had to consider what's the impact going to be on my business? And what if anything, do I need to change or react to, and try to stay ahead of that curve, right? And not get caught, thinking everyone needs a spare pair of glasses, where now they can go and get, like you said, same day glasses. So,
Yeah, it's interesting because you use the word react, so the question is, do you react to everything? A new store opens up, a new service comes. You can't react too fast or too slow, but sometimes things are just trends and they don't mean anything because I had a very loyal customer base. Okay. And I'm not saying that nobody left. It was, I was seeing
yeah.
thousands and thousands of people, but I would say for the most part, because my numbers kept going up, that people were satisfied. They were coming back. They were referring people. So reacting to, a competitor that their edge was 24-hour service, or 24-hour turnaround, something to that effect.
Mhm.
The way and measure, because in order to do that, I would have had to have made changes to how I operated my business, maybe by, new kinds of equipment for making the glasses, maybe stock more lenses. There's so many things. So then you say to yourself, okay, do I change what's working? Because I'm a service-oriented business, my customers are happy.
Mhm.
Because even then, when people are saying, well, lens crafters, I don't know if they were in your neck of the woods back then, but
Yeah.
lens crafters was actually doing all of the grinding of the lens, both it's called surfacing, when you surface the back end to make the prescription, they were doing it in-house. Okay, where I would, I get in either in the morning or late in the day, I'm calling the lab and ordering lenses. There were stock lenses and there were custom lenses. So they were making custom lenses. So stock lenses was mostly no problem. I had them in stock, and for the basic reading glass or something like that, there was no issue in getting it the same day. So that was their edge. But what would I have gained enough business to offset the expense of changing my whole business?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now they
Yeah.
had big real estate. Okay, so they had to have much larger, you know, stores and storefronts. So it's a different business. It's a different business. It's like a, Italian restaurant adding Chinese food to the menu. Maybe it's unique and people say, wow, that's great. I can go, when I'm there from the move for, an egg roll, I can get an egg roll. But that's just responding just because. It's not because you've thought it out and said, oh, this is so.
But as business owners, we can't service everybody, and we shouldn't try to, right? We need to have our niche, we need to have our area of expertise, and we need to align our ideal client with that ideal client, right? We can't go chasing everybody. If I'm uh, a Chinese restaurant, I'm not going to start serving pasta, right?
No,
Because that's not my expertise, and it's not what people expect
no,
when they interact with me. Yeah,
no. And the truth of the matter is, if you do something just to do it, chances are it's not going to be a quality product. It's not going to have the kind of
right,
attention,
right.
you know, eh, you know, you can't serve two masters,
No,
you know,
no,
and that's what a lot of people try to do is, oh, wait, my competition does that.
yeah,
I always had this philosophy, let my competition worry about me. I can't worry about them because I can't control what they do. I can only control what I do,
right,
you
right.
know. So
I
it's
I do think one last point, Keith, because you brought it up when you were talking a minute ago about how your numbers were going up. Um, it's really important, I think, for business owners to have a pulse on their business. Having those numbers, whether they're financial numbers or whether they're non-financial, but really having a pulse on your business by keeping a weekly scorecard of some key metrics so that when there is new competition, is that affecting my business or not? Maybe it's having a negative effect, maybe it's not. We don't know unless we're keeping track, and we got to have numbers that tell us how our business is doing, and not accounting numbers that we get a month or two after the end of the month. I mean, real-time numbers that are telling us how we're doing right now.
Yeah, measurement is important because, you're not going to know, but if a competitor opened up in the neighborhood, they're going to take business from somebody. Now, some of it might be taken from you, at least in the beginning, or your other competitors, but you got to keep doing what you do it right,
Yes,
and always seek to grow your business so that you don't get into a situation where somebody can come in and just take your lunch money.
right.
You
Well
know,
said.
yes. All right there, sir. So another week gone by. This was interesting. I really enjoy like thinking about the experiences I've had in my career, you know,
Mhm.
good, bad, and ugly, because you learn from all of them.
Sure.
And we're in a different world. We have a much less in-person sales relationship, and everything
Right.
is online. I think next week we're going to cover that. We're going to talk about online marketing, and if that's okay with you.
I'll look forward to it.
All right, so we're going to end this week. I want to thank you and thank everybody for joining us today.
And thank you, Keith. Thanks for moderating, and it was another good discussion.
Enjoyed it. Thanks. See you next week.
Bye.